the crowd is going wild. A brand new season, that championship style. Big plays are coming, the rivalry's real. Get ready for that Pigskin Frenzy feel. It's college football, yeah, you know the deal. This is Pigskin Frenzy. Pigskin Frenzy.
Man, entering our final week of spring football. It's like we've been doing this since March, so it's now May 5th, the year of our Lord 2026, and we're sitting here like, man, we've been doing this for going on now officially 2 months of spring football coverage. So guys, thank you guys for tuning in each and every week, just for tuning in to spring football coverage and getting your best spring football content here with Pigskin Frenzy. So a big thank you starting off before we get right into it. But we have our new coaches edition, spring results, Kentucky, Arkansas, UCLA, and Ole Miss. We're ready to rock and roll to kick off our final week of spring football coverage. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris, and whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, or catching us on True Voice Digital, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. For watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. All you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X, Instagram, and TikTok is at Pigskin_Frenzy. Follow along there as well. You're going to get a lot of highlights and clips from the prodigy of college football himself and wild takes from me as well. You also have the website www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Catch us on True Voice Digital. Inspiring faith-based content, not only from me, but from others as well, and as unfiltered analysis from me, the prodigy of college football as well. True Voice Digital, catch us on there. Exclusive home of Pigskin Frenzy also. So, man, like I said, final week. So, again, guys, thank you for tuning in, because without you guys, we would not be doing this show. I mean, look, 104,000 all-time channel views and views on YouTube, right? And we have 7,400 listeners across all audio platforms. So a huge thank you for tuning in each and every week, because without you guys, we would not be doing this. We would not be doing this show. We would not be here and conquering our dream in college football media and content creation. Because without you guys, we would not be doing this. So a huge thank you for tuning in each and every Tuesday and Thursday. It's a we show. So keep on plugging in, keep on throwing out suggestions, and we will give you the best content, because we want to know what you guys want to hear. We're for you guys, and we want to know what you guys want to hear. So thank you guys for tuning in each and every week. And we could not do this show without our Lord and Savior Jesus. We give him all the glory and all the praise, because without him, we would not be doing this. We must decrease and he must increase. Our plan is to exalt him as believers in him, and we are to exalt him and spread his name across all platforms and in every show that we're on. That is our goal as believers in him, is to spread his name and to preach the name of Jesus the whole way. So, guys, if you want to come to know Jesus, contact me, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Pigskin_Frenzy, as well as the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. It's the best decision you can ever make in your life, just to come to know him and to just, be saved by him. He is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. We give him all the glory, and without him, we would not be here chasing our dream and fulfilling our calling to be in college ball media. So we give him all the glory and all the praise, and if we can just use this platform to exalt him, we're going to do it. So we glorify him and praise him across all platforms, networks, and shows. So praise the Lord for us being here today. So, guys, spring results, 2026 spring results, new coaches edition. And we did our spring outlooks on these four teams, back about, a few weeks back, and we're pumped, we're fired up, ready to rock and roll. And about a month back, I guess, we did this. But, man, one that we have, and we have some interesting things coming with them, and it's Kentucky. And because after this week, we're taking a week off. So no Pigskin Frenzy at all next week on Tuesday or Thursday. I'm going to be in the middle of the ocean, so on a cruise. So surprisingly, never been on one. So guys, comment down below what your favorite cruise suggestions are. That's going to be interesting for me. So going on vacation for a week, coming back, and then the next week when I come back, we're going to have a very interesting story / interview on for Pigskin Frenzy as well that we got planned and set up. So we're surprised about that, and we're, excited about that as well. So coming up involving Kentucky. So kicking it off, we're going to talk about Kentucky, and we're going to talk about their spring and their spring game. Kentucky. I thought, and I said this, that they were a wild card. I kind of like how Penn State's a wild card in the Big Ten. I kind of view Kentucky as kind of the dark horse and wild card in the SEC, especially with new head coach Will Stein coming in and establishing a young, hip style of, culture there, right? Again, it will never get old, me saying Will Stein, former Louisville quarterback Will Stein, head coach at Kentucky, right? I just think it's the funniest thing. I really do. Rival coach in the rival school. But with all kidding aside and all, just joshing around aside, man, Kentucky is one of those teams you look at and you're like, okay, offensively, they're kind of putting it together. Now, there's some room of improvement on the defense, right? But you got Jay Bateman there as defensive coordinator, and you're wondering how his system and his scheme is going to fit in with the defense, which I think the edge rushing can be improved a little bit. And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit with the spring game and how we observed and how we've evaluated them as well. But Kentucky, surprisingly, on offense is looking pretty solid. Depending on who's going to call the plays. I think that was one thing that I was kind of weary of. Who's going to call the plays between Joe Salone and Will Stein. But we're going to see. We're going to see in the fall. We're going to get there. But right now, Kentucky looks like an underrated team, a very under-the-radar team, year one under Will Stein, especially what we've seen in the spring. So right now, we're going to go over their spring and talk about our spring results for Kentucky. So one of the things that I wanted to see was how the culture was going to set in and how his culture and his system was going to just go into this spring and how everyone was going to buy into his culture and buy into him, this spring. And that was one of the big things that I wanted to see from Will Stein and, for Kentucky and how they were going to be motivated and buying into his culture and buying into his regime and buying into what he is, delivering, right? And I'm not going to lie, everyone's excited. It's looking like the culture is really excited, really flashy, really young, really cool, right? Really energized and hyped. I really like the culture. What's going on in Kentucky right now. The culture and the mentality there is really up, right? It's not down, it is up. So if you want to take some stock into that, get some stock into that and how the culture is there. It's really up right now, which is really good for Kentucky. That morale needs to be boosted. So good for Kentucky. That's a positive for me when in terms of the mentality of how they are in the spring. So to me, huge positive there is for Kentucky is, their culture and how well their morale is boosted, right? So that's a huge positive for me for Kentucky. I really like, and this is also what I wanted to see as well, the development of Kenny Minchey. And talking about Kenny Minchey, I think some observations that I wanted to see there was the development of him and what he was going to do there. There's some room for improvement for him. Yeah, sure. But I'm going to say this. He still looks athletic enough, and he looks like he's going to be the QB1 for this team. Now, there's some room for improvement, some mechanics that need to be refined from Kenny Minchey, maybe, sure. But he looks like athletic enough and looks like their guy heading into the season, I believe. I think that right now, if there's a quarterback battle, to me, it's like where, and I'm not trying to say that in an ugly way or anything, but it's like where is the QB battle? Because it looks like to me that right now, head and above shoulders, he is the guy for this team to lead this offense and to lead Will Stein's offense. He sees a lot of room for improvement. Will Stein has said that, but at the same time, he thinks that he is ready to take command of that offense. And he's looking like he's in command of that offense. So that's a positive sign there for the offense and for Kenny Minchey and his development. So that's what I wanted to see a little bit. I'm seeing that right now. There's a deep wide receiver rotation for them, led by Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson's one. Hardly Gilmore is also one also. So they were, in some of the practices, they weren't participants in a lot of practices due to just, probably because of just precautionary and injuries and stuff like that. But Nick Anderson, probably going to be the go-to guy. You got him. You got Hardly Gilmore, Nick Anderson transferring from Oklahoma and LSU. He looks like he can be the guy for Kentucky there. Hardly Gilmore as well. DJ Miller also. They have Shane Carr as well. They have a guy named true freshman named Kenny Darby as well. So they have a deep receiver rotation, a very underrated deep receiver rotation for that offense. And that's just what Will Stein wanted. He wanted a deep receiver room. He wanted some weapons that Kenny Minchey can throw to and utilize, especially not just in the running game, but also in the passing game as well. So a deep receiver rotation, that's what we wanted to see out of them as well. And we're seeing a lot of it. We've been seeing a lot of it, which is good. So that's a positive there for the Wildcats also. So positive there. I think that the starting corners, the secondary looks good as well. They're pretty physical, and the corners are kind of underrated. So I think that's a positive there. Also, question marks really is the running game. They have some good running backs, but I think they've been kind of limited during spring a little bit. So I kind of wanted to see what's going on with Barnes and Baxter. Barnes coming in from Oklahoma, Baxter coming in from Texas. I kind of wanted to see what's going on there. That's kind of the only question mark and slightly negative that I have there for Kentucky overall. I think the edge rushing needs to improve a little bit. I think they can get that's the only negative that I have. But it can improve. I think there are some good edge rushers there. Just got to bolster it up a little bit. I think Jay Bateman's system is going to work. I really do. So he's a very good defensive coordinator. Coming in from Texas A&M, coming to Kentucky. I think he's a really solid coach, really solid defensive coordinator. He's going to get that defense back on track and on the right track as well. I just think the edge rush needs to be bolstered up a little bit. That's all. That's really it for the defense. Be a little bit more physical as well, just a tiny bit. Not too much, but a little bit more. And I think that's really it. That's really the only negatives that I've seen for Kentucky as well. Offensive line is surprisingly underrated, led by Lance Hurd. Solid O-line play, and their rotation is going to get deeper and more developed as well. So that's a really strong positive note for Kentucky as well. So their spring game, those are the things that I liked, and some of the things that I liked from their spring as well. I did not really find a whole lot of flaws, which was really good starting out for Kentucky in year one. Now, I think they need to be a little bit more physical in certain areas, so I think that brings my spring result grade down for them a little bit. Overall, my spring result grade for Kentucky, and here it is. Honestly, I would say about a B+, teetering towards a B. I would say a whole A yet, but probably B+, maybe. Teetering a little bit towards a B, but I'll just stick with B+ for Kentucky. I think there's some things they can improve on. I think they're underrated. I think they got some guys that are coming in on paper that they have a shot at surprising a lot of people, and I think that Kentucky probably will surprise a lot of people. I think there's some things that they can work on, maybe. But I will say that they are on the right track to shocking a lot of people in the SEC. A lot of people could disagree with me about that, and it's fine. You can. I mean, everybody has an opinion, right? That's why it's college football. Everybody has spectators. Everybody has podcasts, just like mine. Everybody has shows just like mine. So I get it. But my thoughts and my evaluation is I think Kentucky's a solid enough team to make some noise and shock some people this year. I'm not going to say they're going to win the whole thing and go undefeated, and I never said that. But they have a shot at winning some games that a lot of people don't expect if they keep practicing like that and keep developing and going on the right track. So, honestly, B+ for me is for Kentucky is suffice for me. That's really my spring result on Kentucky. Cannot wait to see what they do. Can't wait to also promote it on Thursday, what the involvement of Kentucky football is going to be. And it's going to be very interesting here at Pigskin Frenzy. Very honored and blessed to be chit-chatting with this person coming up in a couple of weeks. So very excited about that. Kentucky, B+ spring result grade. Not too shabby. I think they had a really good spring. We'll see how they do in the fall. And curious to see how they do in the fall. But QB battle, nothing to worry about. I think Kenny Minchey's their guy. So we can talk about that here on another episode, I guess. But moving on, 3 more. So we got 2 more teams in the SEC, 1 more for the Big Ten. Man, Arkansas. Arkansas is a very interesting one, especially in the quarterback room. We're going to talk about that as well. But going, drifting off from Sam Pittman, going into the Ryan Silverfield era, and a lot of people were, bags over the head and all that. We're not going to get into that anymore. But honestly, if I had to say anything, it's, you're going into a hard job, especially in terms of resources and facilities, but the way Ryan Silverfield is handling everything is really good. And I think going into this spring with the mindset of how, okay, we're going to lock in and attack and try to bring Arkansas football back into prominence. Bring the Razorbacks into the golden age of Arkansas. We're trying to bring the golden age of Arkansas back a little bit, but doing it in his way. So I admire what Ryan Silverfield is doing right now. I really do. I think that it's a very hard job to take on at this point. That's just me. I think it's a challenge. It really is. You're rebuilding. You're trying to rechange and reshape the culture and trying to let everybody buy in to what you are preaching there for that football program and your vision for that football program. And I think the vision for Ryan Silverfield, he expects to change Arkansas into a winning football team, and he's going to try to do that. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen for Arkansas and for Ryan Silverfield. One of the big things that I wanted to see, another thing, just like the new coaches edition, like how I said it was and how I said it was on the spring outlooks, I want to see the vision, and I wanted to see what the vision was going to look like in the culture, how that culture shift was going to look like, especially for some of the players that stuck around for Ryan Silverfield, that were in the Sam Pittman regime, in the Sam Pittman era. I wanted to see how they were going to adapt to that change, adapt to his vision, buy into his culture. Right now, so far, it's looking like they're locking in and buying into his culture. There's a lot of people that have came back to Arkansas to play for him, which is a solid thing. There's some transfers that came in for him, which are pretty good, from Memphis and from other schools, which is pretty good. So Ryan Silverfield, his culture, they're buying into his culture, buying into his vision for the program, which is a very strong positive for Arkansas, getting things on the right track. I do think they have a very hard schedule coming up, which could play into a lot of how important this spring is early on for Arkansas. And how important this spring was for Arkansas really was, like I said, they do have a lot, really have a tough schedule and a tough road ahead schedule-wise. So I think the positive start would be for them buying into his culture and buying into his vision for the program, which is really good. Buying in and developing that team chemistry, that's a huge positive there. So that's a good positive for them. So I will say that. Positive for them on that end. Quarterback play, very underrated so far. I think that positive at first. Let me just put it that way. Positive at first. Like on paper, you look at it, and it's like KJ Jackson, and then leading the charge. You also got A.J. Hill, freshman from Memphis, transferring in from Memphis, or coming in from Memphis. But on paper, it looks good, right? So you got that that's a positive on paper. But then you look into how they've been practicing. That's the negative side of it. We'll get into that here in a little bit, according to my notes. So I think question marks that we have about Arkansas really is the secondary. They do need to reset the secondary a little bit, develop the depth of that. So that's still a question mark at that from what we've seen in practice so far. It's still kind of being reset a little bit. So that's kind of a question mark there as they head into the fall. We need to see more of that. We need to see more resetting of their defensive backs. I do think the running game is going to be solid. I think that's a positive for Arkansas there. Positive is an Arkansas, to me, that's positive for me, is the running game. Also, line of scrimmage. I think that's a positive for me there as well, is how much bolstered they are. They do have some veterans on the O-line coming in for them, which is solid, which is a tremendous plus. Tremendous plus. So running game, offensive line, and line of scrimmage play, positives for Arkansas in practice right now and in their spring so far. Questions is the secondary. I still have questions about what's going on there, how they're going to reset that, and how everything's going there, and to develop the depth, of their secondary. So that's a few things from Arkansas. I think the only negative that I'm seeing, and like I said, on paper they look great. Then you see the practice and what's coming out of the practicing and what's coming out of their spring, is the quarterbacks and how they're overthrowing and how they're kind of missing some of the targets. So I think that's a little bit of a scary sign from both quarterbacks, especially from KJ Jackson, who has the most experience. They are kind of missing some guys. And overthrowing some targets. Receivers are kind of dropping some passes too as well. So when it is on the target, so I don't know what's happening quarterback and receiver chemistry wise and just quarterback wise. Those are some negatives that I'm seeing out of the practice so far. But and out of the practices that I have seen, saw it a little bit in the spring game. And it was just kind of a concern a little bit. So that's really the main concern that I have. Those are some of the main concerns that I have there, especially when you have a good offensive line and a physical offensive line. You just got to connect quarterback-wise. And are they really connecting and gelling out there? Maximizing to their best of their abilities to lead and take command of that offense. I just don't know. So it's kind of tough right now. We'll see. But overall for Arkansas, for me, I think their spring result grade, I would say about a B-, teetering towards a C+, B-. And it's nothing personal with Arkansas on that grade. I just think that there are some things that are some big things that they need to clean up a little bit. I think they need to develop the quarterbacks a little bit more, reset the secondary. That's two things. I think the offensive line, running game, those are some big pluses there. Special teams is coming in when that's not as bad, which is good. So those are some positives there. But some big things is gelling with the receivers, gelling with the quarterbacks, being able to develop them to the best of their ability so they can lead this offense. So that's really my spring result grade on Arkansas. Overall, I think they have a tough road ahead. They're still rebuilding. I'm not saying anything bad about Arkansas in terms of it's not going to be an overnight success. Like a lot of schools can come in and a lot of coaches come in and they just like that. It's just automatic switch. It's not going to be that. It's going to take time with Arkansas, with the resources that they have, and some of the positions that need to be rebuilt as well. It will take time for Arkansas. That's all I'm saying. It's going to take time for them to connect and gel and try to turn the program around a little bit. So to me, I would say B-, probably teetering towards C+, is my spring result grade for Arkansas. So that's my spring results on Kentucky and Arkansas. It's just going to take time. That's all you got to say. It's just going to take time for Arkansas. So just be patient, Razorback fans, and just breathe a little bit. Just breathe a little bit. Coming up next, man, UCLA. UCLA and Ole Miss is the two last teams. So UCLA, Bob Chesney coming in from James Madison. And let me go and tell you something about UCLA. I believe, because Bob Chesney has won wherever he goes, and I said this in the spring outlook, I believe in him. I think that UCLA may not be an overnight success, like I said, but I do think that they will win more games this year, and there's only one way to go from here, and that's up. And I wanted to see a lot of how, one, Nico Amaliava was developing. I wanted to see what was going on the line of scrimmages. I wanted to see how they were going to buy into Bob Chesney's culture and his vision for the UCLA Bruins program. I think a lot of the chatter was, how can we bring some excitement and some swag, really, some hard work and some no-nonsense football back into the UCLA program, right? Some hard-nosed, no-nonsense work ethic back into the program. And I wanted to see how they were going to buy into his vision. So that's a big thing there. So to me, as we get right into their grades, I also want to see what the defense is going to look like as well. That's one big thing as also. So as we dive into their spring results and as we dive into their spring, Positive for me, they are buying into Bob Chesney. And who wouldn't? Bob Chesney is a head coach that you want to play for. He really is. He's a head coach that you want to get pumped for, that you want to go to war for, and you want to lay it all out on the line on the field for him. You want to win for Bob Chesney, right? So I understand why everyone's hyped and excited around UCLA and how the culture is building there and how everyone's buying into his vision for the program and his culture already. So that's a positive for UCLA already. That's automatic. I think conditioning is still a concern a little bit, so that's a negative thing. And there's been a little bit of quite a few injuries that have been happening. If you want to look at some of the practices they've had, there's some players that have been out, missing and hurt from action from the practices due to those injuries and conditioning. So I think conditioning still needs to be bolstered up a little bit. That's really a negative that I have there. Defense is positive for me. I think the defense is being very physical. I think that they have some playmakers on that team that can be very physical, especially in the secondary. I think they have some underrated guys swarming in from the secondary that are going to be really good for the Bruins. So I think they're getting better and getting adjusted. So that's a positive there. At first it was a negative for me, but when I started evaluating them more and as their practices went on and as their spring game went on, I really liked how the defense performed. So positively, the defense is starting to gel a little bit. I mean, it still needs work, obviously. I'm not saying that it doesn't going into the fall, but at the same time, it's a lot better from day one of spring practice than it is now. So that's a positive thing for Bob Chesney and for UCLA. I think the running game is, I wouldn't say fantastic, but I think with Wayne Knight not being in there, it is good, but not as good. I think that the running back rooms are great. The culture of the running back room is good and it's uplifting, but you can tell there's a difference in the running game when Wayne Knight's not in there a little bit. So I think that's a positive and a negative a little bit because Wayne Knight's is a very underrated elusive back. I think he'll break out even more this year. I think Javion Thomas is good. I don't know if he's a Wayne Knight, though. We'll see. I think the running backs room is good. I think it's better when Wayne Knight is in there. So positive and negative there for UCLA. I think that the line of scrimmage can get a little bit better and a little bit more physical on both sides of the ball. They're good, but I think they can get better and there's room for improvement. I think there's room for improvement for Nika Amaliava as well. I think he's practiced hard and good, just needs to gel a little bit more and be a little bit more accurate. Kind of like, if you want to look at it, the best way I can put it probably is like John Mateer at Oklahoma. Not in terms of like he's injured. I think I dropped my pen. Anyway, not in terms of, as I'm looking through my pen, not in terms of injury or anything like that, because John Mateer was injured, and then he started playing a little bit, and then that was probably like the cause of why he didn't play as well. Beforehand, he was good, but he wasn't like Wazoo John Mateer. That's a whole other conversation. We talked about that a few weeks back. But if you look at Nika Amaliava, you see that there are some sprinkles of what he did at Tennessee there, but there are still some things that need to be refined for Nika Amaliava. So for me, and this is what I'm saying, I think he's good. I think he needs to work on some things like accuracy, like some decision making that could lead him and take him to the next level. I really do. And I think with Bob Chesney, he can get there. I really do. So for me, overall, I think that's a big thing there is just developing him even more. Just developing him even more. So overall, my spring result grade on UCLA as a whole, I would say about a B, a solid B. I think that Bob Chesney is is going to build a program there that is going to surprise a lot of people because you think, okay, how he's won everywhere he went, but it's different because now you're in the Big Ten, you're in a Power Four. It's UCLA, and UCLA hasn't had the best of luck the past few years. Probably the past 6 or 7 years, they haven't had the best of luck. The football program was kind of going down, and you're like, okay, but give it to Bob Chesney and let Bob Chesney do his work. I believe in him. And I believe that Bob Chesney can make something happen at UCLA. Now, is it going to be immediate? Probably not. But I do think that it will happen, and it's going to happen probably within the next maybe 3 years, maybe. Just give it some time and give it some patience. I believe in him. He's a winner, and I believe that he can turn UCLA into a winner. So that's my thoughts on Bob Chesney and UCLA. That's my spring results on them. B, probably a solid B for UCLA in their spring. Last but not least, the Ole Miss Rebels. Before we wrap everything up on this episode, the Ole Miss Rebels, man, Pete Golding entering his first full season as head football coach of this team. I really wanted to see, and this is what I said during my outlooks, because there's no spring game. This is a Meet the Rebels day. How everything was going to look, right? And guys, I found my pen. So don't worry, I found my pen. How everything was going to look for Ole Miss, culture-wise, as I know the culture's good, but staff-wise, positioning-wise, system-wise, because while there are some guys on the staff that are still from Lane Kiffin's offense and still from Lane Kiffin's staff that stayed at Ole Miss, some guys, like a Joe Judge, this is still a different staff. Like, some pieces on this staff are still different. Now, John David Baker, offensive coordinator, he was with Lane Kiffin before Charlie Weiss came on board and before he left. But now he's back at Ole Miss, and now he's Pete Golding's offensive coordinator. Pete Golding is still going to coach the defense. It's still a whole kind of different staff and different vibe, position, and staff-wise. So, for me, I wanted to see how that was going to gel in the practices. I wanted to see what the receiver depth was going to look like. Deshaun Stribling, he's now with the 49ers in the NFL. He was a key playmaker. Caden Lee at Mizzou with Austin Simmons. You got Jace Matthews coming in as a wide receiver there, as a true freshman. The receiver room, to me, is going to look bright. So, I mean, you're not too worried about the receivers, right? Jonte Cook coming in, transfer from Syracuse, and Texas coming in. You have Deuce Alexander, Jr. there. He's still there, coming in from Wake Forest, and Caleb Cunningham. You got him as well. So you got some depth at the receiving room, which is pretty good. And I want to see how everybody was going to stand out and who was going to be some of those leading receivers, right? So you just wanted to see that. So you wanted to see those things right there, how the defense was going to look as well, especially the secondary, and that was a concern for me as well. So let's get right into it and how I evaluated the spring practices as well. So obviously, when you look at everything, as I pull up my notes here, as everybody wraps up spring, it may. And here's the positive note. The positive note is that everyone's buying into Pete Golding because he was already there. So it's not like a overall different new head coach coming in. They know who Pete Golding is. So they know the culture. They know the system that he's going to bring and the passion that he's going to bring as their head coach. So culture-wise, vision-wise, there's really nothing but positive there because they already know and they already are familiar with it. So positive there going into the spring for Ole Miss. The receiving rotation is very positive. I like the receivers there. I think they got some good weapons on offense. I like John David Baker's system on offense, so I think the offense is going to be fine. Should it add Shameless, Keywan Lacey? I have no problems with Ole Miss's offense. I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to cause some trouble for defenses again. I think they have that opportunity to try to surprise some people. We'll see what happens, but is it going to be a new offensive system? We'll see. I think it's a big it's going to be a big talking point. Because obviously it's going to be a very familiar system like how Charlie Weiss ran it, but John David Baker's going to add a little bit of a tweak to it. We'll see what happens, but I think the offensive system is going to be just really kind of familiar for them. So everything's going to be fine offensively. I think that's a positive for me there. Positive also for me a little bit is the offensive line. And I think they're starting to gel a little bit more as well. So that's a positive there. So offensively is positive. Special teams, also positive. So they have a solid special teams. They have a solid offense. I think the defense is the only thing that's a concern. Because defensively, if they really can't stop anybody else, and the offense of Ole Miss gets a little bit stopped, they're in trouble. And I think the big part of that, to me, and the only negative that I have question marks about the linebacker spot still. I want to see what's going on there. I have some question marks about the defensive line. I think they lost some guys there. I think the secondary is the only negative that I think. I think the secondary needs to improve. I saw some practices where they were getting beat, and I think that was the biggest weakness last year. It's still kind of a weakness right now in the practicing, and the spring practice going on right now. I think the weakness is the secondary. Do I think that they can get it going? Maybe. I'm not saying that they're not or will get it going or not. I'm just saying that it needs to improve. I think that's the only negative and downside that I've seen for Ole Miss in their spring really is the secondary and probably a little bit of their defense in terms of tackling. They kind of missed some tackles there as well. And in terms of physicality on the defensive line. So those are some of the negatives that I've seen from them defensively. I think they got to get it together. Because it starts bleeding into games, then it's going to be a problem. That will be a problem at that point. Right now, it's still early to where they can clean it up and get it fixed. But if it starts bleeding into fall camp, I will start getting concerned then. So we'll see how it goes there. Those are just my thoughts overall for Ole Miss, defensively and negative-wise. But overall, my spring result for Ole Miss, to me, I would say, if I had to give a grade, probably a B+, teetering towards A-. I think that Ole Miss is not going to really lose a step on offense. The question is, to me, how is their defense going to hold up, especially in the secondary? How is that going to hold up? So overall, B+, teetering towards A- is my grade for them and my spring result grade for them, and that's suffice for me there. I just want to see how they're going to hold up. I want to see what's going to happen there and how are they going to look spring result-wise and spring grade-wise. So to me, I'm just going to say it. That's what I want to see from Ole Miss. How is the defense going to hold up, and how are they going to look heading into the fall? That's really my only primary concern, especially the secondary for Ole Miss. But overall, my grade for them, B+, teetering towards A-, and that is suffice for Ole Miss. Overall, that was my spring result grade for Kentucky, Arkansas, UCLA, and Ole Miss in the new Coaches Edition 2026 spring results. And we are out of time. Guys, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. All you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X, Instagram, and TikTok is at Pigskin_Frenzy. Follow all the pages there. You're going to get episode updates from the prodigy of college football himself and wild takes from me. Catch us on True Voice Digital as well. And not only that, it's the exclusive home of Pigskin Frenzy. And not only that, our website's www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Guys, we are so thankful once again for you guys tuning in to a new Coaches Edition 2026 spring results. We will be back on Thursday with our final spring results, our final spring football coverage episode for 2026 spring results. And we're going to end our spring football coverage, our 2026 spring football coverage on Thursday with our Momentum Edition. Can you keep up the Momentum Edition of Pigskin Frenzy there? Momentum Edition, spring results, featuring Vanderbilt, Virginia, Iowa, and Arizona. Spring result Momentum Edition between all of those teams that are kind of all four from the Power Four. Vanderbilt, Virginia, Iowa, and Arizona. All on tap on Thursday for our final 2026 spring football coverage episode. 2026 spring results, Momentum Edition episode coming up on Thursday with those teams. So until Thursday, guys, We'll see you then. I'm Joel Norris signing off. We're praying for you all. We love you all. As always, stay the course.